What's up, chefs? Welcome back for another episode. This week we are going over knife sharpening. Now, I can sharpen a knife pretty well, but I would not say I'm anywhere near an expert. I brought in a friend to help me out with this one. You might recognize him from our very first video doing bolo and gnocchi. It is my good friend Addison is going to help me out with this video. So if someone's thinking about buying a decent knife for the first time, does it matter what it's made out of or how expensive it is to have a truly sharp knife?
No. In this video, we take a really cheap knife.
Bobby Flay brand chef knife.
And we get it sharp enough to, well, shave my arm. When it comes to sharpening, all that really matters is the technique.
Let's see how it's done. Let's get our setup started and then let's start sharpening some knives.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right.
Okay, so if you just want to start sharpening knives and you're not wanting to spend a ton of money on your setup, so if you find yourself a good, high quality, double-sided sharpening stone, a brand I recommend is King. You can find them on Amazon. Honesty, I would just take a towel like this one that you're not afraid to get real dirty. Once you have a good stone and a wet towel, you're pretty much set.
All right, chef. So we know what to do if we just want the really basic setup, but what if we really want to go for it? Like, we found that knife sharpening is our passion. We want to go all out. What are we doing?
Well, you've got a setup similar to the one that I have.
Let's first talk about what knife sharpening actually is. Every knife blade is made up of two parts, the primary and secondary bevel. The main bulk of the knife is your primary bevel, and the cutting edge, well, that is your secondary bevel. When you sharpen a knife, you are removing metal from the secondary bevel to create as thin of an edge as possible. When you remove metal, you create small metal shavings that curl off the edge of your knife, and that is what is known as a burr. When you can feel the burr, that is when you know it's time to flip the blade and sharpen the other side. The more comfortable you are with feeling the burr, the better at knife sharpening you're going to be.
So this stone right here is a 400 grit. The only time I ever use it is when I chip my blade. So this is an 800 grit stone. This is my starting point if the blade is actually dull and just needs to be sharpened. This is my 3000 grit stone, and I do it when the blade just needs to be touched up a bit. It's this 8000 grit stone. I use it if I'm just finishing the knife, and it's used at the very last step.
All right, chef, so we went over these stones here. We know the different grits. What are these ones here, and how are they different?
They are what's called a combination stone. So you can see that they have grits labeled on two sides of each of the stone. This is a soaking stone. So this one you would leave in water for several minutes until the air bubbles stop, whereas all of my stones are what's called splash and go. And they do not require any soaking them at all. You literally just have the water and splash them over the top, and you can just start sharpening right away. Okay, now that we're all set up, the important thing to do is to find the edge angle. And so typically speaking, as a good rule of thumb, 12 to 15 degrees is the number you're looking for. So the one thing that I use is a stack of 3 pennies. I use this because it keeps the angle between 12 and 15 degrees. So what I do to find the angle is I take the pennies and I put my finger on the blade and I just gently rest the tang of the knife onto the pennies like so. It's really important to know how to hold the knife while you're sharpening. So essentially what I've got going on here is a very firm grip with my right hand. I've got my thumb right there. I've got my middle, ring, and pinky finger pretty securely around the blade there. And on the other side, I've got my index finger keeping nice firm pressure around there, just stabilizing everything. And this comes with practice you'll get a much better feel for it the more you sharpen. You got your edge angle and you know how to hold the knife. Now we're just gonna talk about the stroke. And for me, I'm right-handed, so I always use my right hand to hold the knife. When I'm on this side of the blade, I will keep my 2 fingers, apply not too much pressure. If you want to do it in pounds, it'd be like 4 pounds, but nothing crazy. You don't want too much pressure, and only when I'm moving forward. I start from the tip, and each stroke you apply a little bit of pressure and move your fingers down. So what you're doing here is you're pushing the metal towards the bottom of the blade. And I'm moving my finger in each section to apply a little bit more pressure to ensure that the blade is being sharpened evenly across the entire length of the blade. At each end, I stick around for a couple extra strokes just to make sure that that part of the blade is being sharpened. Once you get to the heel of the blade, use your thumb to apply a little bit extra pressure too, as it tends to be a little bit more difficult to sharpen the back of the blade. When you switch it over to this side, you're going to be using the same logic, except applying the pressure on the stroke towards your body. And that is just to maintain the removal of metal towards the very edge of the knife. So every so often while I'm sharpening one side of the blade, I'll stop and run my thumb down the side of the blade just like this. And the reason I do that is I'm looking for what's called a burr. And a burr is that we removed enough metal off of that edge that it has now curled over to the other side of the blade. And once you feel a burr down the whole length of the blade, that means you're ready to start sharpening the other side of the blade.
Addison, thank you so much for helping me out with this video. I really appreciate it, since you are way better at sharpening knives than I am. If you have any comments or questions about this video or knife sharpening or anything at all, leave me a comment down below. I'll be sure to respond. But before we go, Addison, do you have any last minute tips or words of wisdom as far as knife sharpening is concerned?
I think it's super important to understand that if you're just starting out, take your time. That is one of the more crucial points of knife sharpening, and understanding when to stop sharpening one side of the knife is when you feel that burr, and you will feel it. It can be really daunting and frustrating, and I know this seems like a lot of information. That being said, I do care a ton about it, and I really hope that all of this information was helpful and useful for any of you guys.
I think it was. And if you are curious about where to find any of these stones or any equipment, I will have links in the description. And again, thank you so much, Addison, for helping me with this video. And don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, hit that bell for notifications, and we will see you next time, chefs.